So I'm going to start off by drawing a horizontal line at the top of my paper. This line is going to serve as my shoulder line. Next, I'm going to mark half of my bust circumference on that line plus 0.5 inch for sewing ease. I'm then going to transfer that same measurement that I have to the bottom part of my paper. This is so I can draw a line that is perfectly straight and vertical. Now I'm just marking the center front and the center back to identify which sides of my block I'm working on. Next, I'm going to be dividing my half bust measurement so that I can have a cutter for my front and a cutter for my back. You can easily do this by just folding your tape into two so that you can get where the half is. And to get a straight line down the middle of my pattern making space, I'm going to mark the same half measurement at the bottom part of my paper, and then I'll connect both points with a straight line. So starting from the front of my block, I'm going to start off by measuring 3 inches for my neck point and 7.5 inches for my shoulder, which is half of my shoulder measurement. And from my shoulder point, I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches for my shoulder slope. And the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my armhole depth, which is going to be from this measurement, and my armhole depth is 7.25 inches. Now what I'm doing is transferring my armhole depth measurement from the shoulder so that I can have a very straight line that will pass through from my front to the back of my blocks. Please don't mind the fact that it looks slanted on the video. I think it's the angle where the camera was, but it's actually a very straight line. So now I'm drawing a line that is straight from my shoulder slope point down to my armhole depth, which is now also my bust line. I'm then connecting my shoulder point and my neck point with a straight line. Next, I'm marking my front neck depth, which is also 3 inches derived from this same measurement, and I'm going to be using a curve to connect my neck depth and my neck point. Now onto the back of my block, I'm going to start off by marking my neck point, which is also 3 inches, and then my neck depth is 1 inch. I'm going to be drawing a straight line of about 2 inches, and then I'm going to finish off that line with a curve to connect my neck depth to my neck point. Next, I'm going to be marking my back length measurement, which is 14.5 inches, and I'm going to be squaring that point towards my side seam. This is going to end up being my back waistline. The square line is basically a line that is perfectly straight, about 90 degrees. Don't mind the fact that it doesn't look straight on the video. I guess it's the angle as I've already said. Next, I'm also going to be marking half my shoulder measurement, and from that point I'm going to mark down 1 inch, which is going to be my shoulder slope, and I'll be connecting that to my neck point. I'm just marking the same half shoulder measurement so that I can have a straight line from my shoulder point to my bust line, which is also my armhole depth. The next thing I'm going to be doing is dividing my armhole depth by 2, and from that point I'm going to just draw a square line that is going to go towards my center back line. I'm using my semi pattern master, which makes drawing square lines very easy. On my back line, I'm going to be marking 0.5 inches inwards, which I'm going to use to create my armhole curve, and I'm going to be connecting the point from my back line to my shoulder point, and from the back line to the bust measurement, which is already half of my block. On my front armhole, I'm going to be marking 1/3 of my armhole depth measurement from my bust line upwards. So this is my armhole depth. This is 1/3 of my armhole depth measurement. I'm going to be marking that, and the same measurement I'm going to mark on the center front, and I'm going to be drawing a straight line I'm going to be drawing a straight line. This straight line is going to serve as my chest line. On the chest line, I'm going to also be marking 0.5 inches inwards to create my armhole curve. There's a whole lot of calculations that can go into creating your armhole curve, but I'm just using this because it's easier and faster and less complicated. Now back to my back waistline, I'm going to be marking 1/4 of my waist circumference plus 1.5 inches. 1 inch is going to serve as my dart allowance. So for my back dart line, I'm going to be dividing my quarter waist measurement by 2, which is 3.5, and I'm going to transfer that same 3.5 measurement to my bust line so that I can draw a very straight line that is going to serve as my dart line. Now, as earlier stated, my dart allowance is 1 inch, so I've divided that by 2, giving me 0.5 inch on both sides of the line, which I'm going to connect both points to the tip of my dart line. Now I'm done with my back block. The next thing I'm going to do is to finish up my front block. So back to the front of my block, I'm going to be marking my bust point and my under bust point. Both points I am going to square line towards the side seam. Now this block is the block with the bust dart, and to create my bust dart, I'm going to have to divide the distance between my bust point to my under bust point by 2, and after taking that measurement I had 2.5 divided by 2, I'm going to get 1.25, and I'm just writing it here so that I can have that close by. Next, I'm going to take the measurement from my back neck point to my back waistline, and I'm going to mark that on the front. Then I'm going to add my 1.25 to that measurement to create my front waistline. I do apologize for the fact that you can't see how I'm marking that, but I'm going to adjust it in a bit. So I've marked my front waistline and I've squared that out to my side seam. Next, I'm going to be marking my apex divided by 2 on my bust line and on the waistline so that I can have a straight line drawn from the bust line to the waistline. This line, of course, is going to serve as my front dart line. Now I'm going to create my bust dart, and to create my bust dart I'm going to be marking 1 inch from the apex point towards the side seam, and on my side seam I'm going to be marking the 1.25 inches that has been kept aside for my bust dart. I'm going to then connect these 2 points with a diagonal line, and there you have it, my bust dart is done. Now for my waist dart is 1.5 inches, so I'm dividing that by 2, so I have 0.75, which I'm going to be marking on both sides of the dart line. I'm going to then mark from the apex point down the dart line 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect that 1 inch point to the 0.75 inch marks that I've already created for my dart legs. I'll then mark a quarter of my waist measurement, and I'm going to do that by jumping over the darts, and this is where my quarter waist measurement is. I'm going to then connect that to my bust side seam. Now from this point you can choose to cut out your blocks before making this adjustment that I'm making right now, but if you feel like you might have like a little bit more space on your side seam, then you can go ahead and do that. If not, I'd advise that you cut out your block first, then you come back around and then make this adjustment. Now this adjustment is to make sure that your bust dart has like a smooth transition from the waist to the bust point. If you just cut it out that way, the way that it was initially, it's not going to lap well basically. Now one final thing before you cut out your block, you're going to have to make sure that your side seams align. So your front side seam has to align to your back side seam. So I'm going to just fold over my dart again and then measure from my bust point to my waistline, and I'm going to check and make sure that same measurement is what I have on my back waistline. And for mine it was a bit like it was shorter than what I actually have, but in some cases you can have cases where the side seam is actually much longer than the back waistline, than the point where the back waistline stops. You can just go ahead and add that extension to it and then create like a curve to make sure that it joins to the back length points. So my back and my front blocks are ready, and I'm just going to show you just one last thing. Okay, I keep saying one last thing, but this is the last thing that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to just show you how you can balance off your bust dart in case you just cut it off from the pattern without making that adjustment that I did earlier. So I'm just going to glue the pattern to this extra piece of paper that I have. You can already see that after folding it, there's like some space left by the side, so it's not really well balanced, and when you use your block it's going to actually show that it's not well balanced. So I'm going to just get glue, and I'm going to glue this part of the front block to this little piece of paper. You don't really need much paper, just get glue. You can use masking tape if you have that, then you can just glue it down and then just fold over the dart just like this, and just get your ruler, and then from the bust point to the waistline point, just adjust the line. You can just draw another line, and you can just get your scissors and then just cut it straight up from that point. And by the time you just cut it, you can see that everything just looks straight. When you cut it, it's going to actually show you, going to actually leave the exact amount meant for your dart, so you can see what I have there. So that's it for our basic block with a bust dart.